AITA for refusing to give my brother my car after he sold is to teach his girlfriend responsibility. I, 29M, have a decent job in IT and live about 25 minutes outside the city. Public transportation where I live is terrible. Buses come maybe once an hour. Sometimes they just don't show up. Because of that, having a car is basically necessary if you want to keep your sanity. About 3 years ago, I bought a used car. It's nothing fancy, just reliable and fully paid off. I take care of it because I depend on it for work, groceries, and visiting family. My younger brother, Mark, 26M, lives closer to the city and until recently also had a car. Mark has always had a habit of making dramatic decisions to prove a point. Usually they affect only him, but this time he somehow dragged me into it. Mark has been dating his girlfriend Lena for about a year. From what I've seen, she's nice, but she could be a little forgetful or disorganized. Apparently, she borrowed his car a few times and forgot to fill the gas tank or return it messy. Not great, but nothing I consider a huge issue. Instead of talking to her like a normal person, Mark decided he wanted to teach her responsibility. His solution was to sell his car. Yes, actually sell it. According to him, if she didn't have easy access to a car anymore, she would learn to plan ahead and respect other people's property. I honestly thought he was joking when he told me this plan a few weeks ago. He was not joking. He sold the car to a coworker and suddenly realized that now he had no transportation either. Apparently, he assumed Lena would just start using public transportation and he would figure something out. The something turned out to be asking me to lend him my car. Not occasionally, regularly. The first time he asked, I laughed because I thought he was kidding. He was not amused. He said since I work from home 3 days a week, I don't really need it that much and could let him use it during the week. When I said no, he acted like I was being selfish. I explained that even on days I work from home, I still need the car. I run errands, go to the gym, help my parents sometimes, and honestly, I just don't want to be stuck at home with no transportation. He kept pushing. Then he asked if he could at least borrow it for a couple weeks until Lena adjusts. That's when I told him the situation wasn't my problem. He chose to sell his car. I had nothing to do with that decision. He got frustrated and said family is supposed to help each other. I pointed out that helping family usually doesn't mean giving up your only form of transportation because someone else made a weird relationship experiment. Things escalated when our parents got involved. Apparently, Mark complained to them and framed it like I'm refusing to help him during a tough time. My mom called me and asked why I can't just share the car for a while. I told her the full story about him selling his own car to prove a point to Lena. There was a long pause on the phone, and then she said, well, that was probably not the best idea, but she still suggested maybe I could let him use it on certain days. I said no again. Now Mark is angry with me and says I'm letting him struggle just to make a point. He claims I'm being petty and that I should support him because relationships are complicated. The thing is, he's not actually stranded. There are buses and trains from the city where he lives. They're just inconvenient compared to having a car. He also makes decent money and could easily buy another used car if he wanted to. But he refuses because he says that would ruin the lesson. Meanwhile, he keeps texting me things like, you're really choosing a car over your brother, and don't expect help from me when you need it. Lena actually reached out to me once and apologized for the situation, which made it even more awkward. She said she never asked him to sell the car and didn't think he would actually do it. At this point, the whole situation feels ridiculous. I didn't cause it, and the solution seems obvious, buy another car. But because I'm the one saying no, somehow I've become the villain in the family group chat. My dad mostly stays out of it, but did say, you know your brother, he gets stubborn. Yes, exactly. That's kind of the problem. I feel like if I give in and let him use my car, it just encourages this kind of impulsive nonsense. Also, realistically, once he starts using it regularly, I'm pretty sure it will become an expectation instead of temporary favor. So now Mark thinks I'm an unsupportive brother, my mom thinks I'm being a little harsh, and I'm just sitting here wondering how I got pulled into a relationship lesson that I never signed up for. AITA for refusing to let my brother use my car after he voluntarily sold his. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she told everyone I promised to. I, 31M, have a younger sister, Lily, 27F. Growing up, our family always treated her like the fragile one. She had anxiety, struggled in school, and generally got a lot more attention from our parents. I was the responsible one who got told things like be the bigger person and your sister needs more support than you do. I accepted that dynamic for years and tried not to resent it. About 5 years ago, I started a small construction business with a friend. It took a lot of work, but it's been doing well recently. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. Meanwhile, Lily has bounced between jobs and has always relied on our parents financially. Last year, Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Mark, 29M. At first, everyone was excited. Mark seemed nice enough, though I never knew him that well. When they first started talking about the wedding, Lily mentioned they were struggling with the budget. I told her that weddings are expensive and that maybe they should consider a smaller ceremony. At one point during a family dinner, she jokingly said, "Maybe my successful big brother will sponsor the wedding." I laughed and said something like, "Yeah, sure, if I win the lottery." Everyone laughed, and the conversation moved on. That was the entire extent of me joking about paying for anything. A few months later, my mom called me and asked how much I planned to contribute to Lily's wedding. I was confused and asked what she meant. She said Lily told them I had offered to pay for most of it as a gift. I told my mom that wasn't true. She sounded surprised, but said Lily seemed very certain about it. I figured it was just a misunderstanding, so I called Lily. She casually said that since my business was doing well, she thought it would be a meaningful gesture if I covered the venue and catering. That alone was almost $25,000. I told her that was way beyond anything I could or wanted to do. She got quiet and then said she had already told Mark's family that I was helping with the wedding. I said that wasn't my problem because I never agreed to it. She got frustrated and said I had basically promised at dinner months ago. I reminded her that it was clearly a joke and that everyone laughed. She then admitted she may have presented it a little more confidently than I actually said. After that conversation, I thought the issue was settled, but apparently it wasn't. Over the next couple weeks, I started getting weird comments from family members. My aunt told me it was generous of me to help Lily start her married life. My cousin asked how expensive the venue was that I chose. That's when I realized Lily had been telling people I was paying for the wedding. I confronted her again and asked why she was telling everyone that. She said it was easier than explaining their financial situation and that I was putting her in an embarrassing position by backing out. I told her you can't back out of something you never agreed to. She got angry and accused me of always being selfish. She said I knew she struggled more in life and that I could easily afford to help. To be clear, I cannot easily afford a $25,000 wedding. My business makes decent money, but most of it goes back into the company. I also just bought a house last year. Then things escalated. Lily sent out wedding invitations that listed the venue and date. A week later, my mom called me again, sounding stressed. Apparently, the venue had asked for the next payment, and Lily told them to contact me. I was furious. I called the venue and explained there must have been a mistake and that I never agreed to pay for anything. They were understanding, but said Lily had specifically listed me as the financial contact. After that, I told Lily she needed to fix this immediately. Instead, she went on social media and made a vague post about how some people make promises to look good in front of family and then abandon you when it matters. Several relatives messaged me asking what happened. Some assumed I had promised to help and then backed out at the last minute. My dad tried to mediate and suggested I at least help with something smaller just to calm things down. But at that point, I was so frustrated that I refused on principle. Now the wedding is apparently in trouble because they can't afford the venue they booked. My mom says Lily is devastated and humiliated because people from Mark's family already know about the situation. She thinks I should just contribute something significant to save the day and keep the peace. But I feel like if I give in now, it basically rewards Lily for lying and manipulating everyone. Some relatives say I'm being too harsh because families should support each other. Others say Lily created this entire mess herself. So now I'm stuck in the middle of a family fight I never asked for. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she told everyone I promised to. AITA for refusing to give my brother the money I saved for years after he suddenly decided he deserved it more. I'm 29, and for the last 7 years, I've been saving money very aggressively. I work in IT, and I'm not rich, but I'm careful. I don't travel much, I don't buy expensive things, and I live in a small apartment, even though I could technically afford something nicer. The reason is that my long-term goal has always been to buy a small house. Growing up, my family moved constantly because we rented and my parents struggled financially. I remember switching schools 3 different times before I was 13. Ever since then, having a stable home of my own has been extremely important to me. My younger brother Alex is 26, and he's the complete opposite of me financially. He makes decent money, but spends almost all of it. New phone every year, expensive sneakers, trips with friends, concerts, gadgets, you name it. I've never judged him out loud because it's his life and his money. About a month ago, I finally found a small house outside the city that I absolutely love. It's nothing fancy, but it has a little yard and enough space for me and my girlfriend. I've saved enough for a solid down payment, and I was really excited. I told my parents and my brother during a family dinner. Everyone seemed happy at first. My mom even teared up a little because she knows how long I've wanted this. Then about a week later, Alex called me and asked if we could talk. He came over to my apartment and told me something I didn't expect at all. He said he's in serious debt. Apparently, over the last 2 years, he racked up around $28,000 in credit card debt. A lot of it was from traveling and buying things he couldn't really afford. Some of it was apparently from helping a friend who never paid him back. He said the interest was crushing him, and he didn't know how to get out of it. I felt bad for him, but then he asked if I could lend him the money. Not a small portion. Basically all of my house down payment. I was stunned. I told him I couldn't do that because that money was specifically saved for the house. I also told him I didn't even have it all in cash because some of it was already allocated for the purchase process. Alex got frustrated and said I was being selfish. His argument was that a house could wait, but his financial situation was an emergency. He said family should help each other and that if our roles were reversed, he would help me. The thing is, I honestly don't believe that. I told him I would help him figure out a repayment plan, budgeting, or even lend him a smaller amount, but I wasn't giving up my entire savings. He left angry. The situation escalated when he told my parents. Now, my mom keeps calling me saying Alex is extremely stressed and barely sleeping. She says he made mistakes, but he's still my brother, and I'm in a position to help. My dad is a little more neutral, but he did say something that bothered me. He told me that technically I could rebuild my savings in a few years, but Alex's credit might be destroyed for much longer. Alex also started sending me long messages saying he's drowning and that watching me buy a house while he's struggling feels like I'm abandoning him. But here's the thing that keeps bothering me. I didn't suddenly become responsible with money last week. I spent years being careful while he spent freely. I skipped vacations with friends, drove the same old car for 8 years, and put extra money in his savings whenever I could. Now I finally reached my goal, and suddenly I'm being told I should give it up because my brother didn't manage his finances. My girlfriend is firmly on my side. She said if I give him the money, there's a huge chance I'll never see it again and the house opportunity will be gone. She also pointed out that bailing him out might just encourage him to keep making bad financial choices. Still, the guilt is getting to me because my family keeps framing it like I'm choosing a house over my brother's well-being. I do care about him. If he were sick or in danger, I wouldn't hesitate. But this situation feels different because it was completely preventable. Now the house purchase is moving forward and my brother barely speaks to me. My mom keeps saying she hopes I won't regret this if something bad happens to him mentally because of the stress. I feel like the villain in my own family right now, even though all I did was protect something I worked for. So AITA for refusing to give my brother the money I saved for my house to pay off his debt? AITA for refusing to cancel my wedding because my sister suddenly announced she was pregnant and wanted the date? I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé Daniel, 30M, for a year and a half. Planning the wedding has honestly been one of the happiest experiences of my life. We booked a small lakeside venue almost a year ago because it gets reserved extremely quickly. My dream was always an early summer wedding near the water, and the only available Saturday was June 14th. So we took it immediately, paid deposits, sent save the dates months ago, and have been slowly putting everything together since. My sister Clara, 31F, has always had a complicated relationship with me. Growing up, she was the golden child. She got the best grades, my parents bragged about her constantly, and she was always the one people focused on during family gatherings. I didn't resent her exactly, but I definitely got used to being in the background. Clara got married 3 years ago. Her wedding was huge and extremely expensive, and my parents helped pay for most of it. I was happy for her and did everything she asked as her bridesmaid, including spending way more money than I could comfortably afford at the time. Still, I try to be supportive because she's my sister. Fast forward to now. About 3 weeks ago, we had a big family dinner where Daniel and I were going to show everyone the final venue layout and some decoration plans. I had printed out little photos and was excited to share them. Right before dinner started, Clara announced that she was pregnant. Everyone immediately started cheering and hugging her. My mom cried. My dad started talking about becoming a grandfather. For about 30 minutes, the entire conversation was about Clara, baby names, nursery ideas, and how exciting everything was. I was genuinely happy for her. I hugged her and congratulated her. But the timing already felt a little strange because she knew we had planned this dinner to talk about the wedding. And she said something that completely caught me off guard. She said, "Actually, this works out perfectly because the baby is due a week before your wedding." I didn't immediately understand what she meant, so I just said something like, "Oh, wow, that's close." She laughed and said, "Yeah, so obviously you'll have to move the wedding. I won't be able to attend if I've just given birth." The entire table got quiet. I thought she was joking at first, but she kept going. She said she couldn't imagine missing her sister's wedding and that it would be selfish to expect her travel with a newborn. She also said she wanted to be fully present and not recovering from labor. I told her I understood, but the wedding date couldn't just be moved. The venue deposit alone was several $1,000s, and the next available weekend there wasn't until the following year. She looked genuinely annoyed and said, "Well, you booked it before knowing I was pregnant." I said yes, but obviously I couldn't have predicted that. My mom then chimed in and asked if we could at least look into changing the date so Clara could attend. Daniel explained that we had already booked the venue, photographer, catering, and the officiant. Changing the date would mean losing multiple deposits and possibly needing to replan everything. Clara rolled her eyes and said, "I just feel like family should come first." I told her calmly that family does come first, but we've been planning this wedding for over a year. She then said something that honestly hurt. She said, "It's not like weddings are a once-in-a-lifetime thing anymore. People get married again all the time, but I can't redo my baby's birth." At that point, I felt my patience slipping. I told her the wedding was happening on the planned date and that I would love for her to attend if she could, but I completely understood if she couldn't. She accused me of not caring about her at all. Over the next few days, my parents started calling me, trying to find a compromise. My mom suggested having a courthouse ceremony now and moving the big celebration later so Clara could attend. My dad asked if we could at least push the date back a few months. The problem is that the venue schedule is full. The earliest new date would be almost a year later, and we'd lose about $9,000 in deposits. Daniel said he supports whatever I decide, but thinks it's unreasonable to move everything for one person, even if that person is my sister. Now Clara isn't speaking to me and told some relatives that I'm choosing a party over my nephew or niece. A couple of cousins messaged me saying they understand both sides, but that they'd be sad if Clara missed the wedding. I do feel bad. I really do want her there. But I also feel like it's unfair to expect us to rearrange an entire wedding that dozens of people have already made travel plans for. At the same time, the way my parents keep pushing makes me feel like maybe I'm being stubborn. So AITA for refusing to move my wedding date, even though my sister will likely miss it because she's giving birth around the same time. AITA for refusing to let my sister move into my house after she told everyone it was basically hers already. 31M, bought my house 3 years ago after saving for nearly a decade. I grew up in a pretty chaotic household where money was always tight, So owning a home was a huge personal milestone for me. It's not a mansion or anything fancy, just a small 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood, but I'm really proud of it. My younger sister, Jenna, 27F, has always been a bit more impulsive with life decisions. She's never really held a job for longer than a year, tends to jump between relationships, and generally relies a lot on our parents when things go wrong. About 2 months ago, Jenna called me saying she had broken up with her boyfriend and needed somewhere to stay for a few weeks. I told her she could crash in my guest room temporarily while she figured things out. I made it clear it wasn't a permanent arrangement because I work from home and really value my space. At first, everything seemed fine. She moved in with a couple suitcases and promised she'd start job hunting right away. Then things slowly started changing. Within a week, she began rearranging the guest room. That alone didn't bother me, but then she started moving furniture from other parts of the house. One day I came home and my living room coffee table was gone because she said it worked better in her room. She also started inviting friends over without asking. When I reminded her this was temporary, she laughed and said something like, "Relax, I'm not going anywhere for a while." That comment bothered me, but I didn't push it at the time. About 3 weeks later, I went to a family dinner at my parents' house. During dinner, my mom casually mentioned how nice it was that Jenna had finally found a stable place to live. I was confused and asked what she meant. Apparently, Jenna had been telling people that she was basically moving into my house permanently. She told our parents that I had agreed to let her take one of the spare bedrooms long-term because it's too much house for one person anyway. I immediately corrected that and said that wasn't the plan at all. Jenna got really defensive and said I was embarrassing her in front of everyone. She claimed I had implied she could stay as long as she needed and that family should support each other. The thing is, she wasn't acting like a temporary guest anymore. She had started ordering packages to my address, talking about getting a cat, and even telling one of her friends that the 3rd bedroom might become her art studio. After the dinner, I confronted her in private and told her we needed to talk about expectations. I explained that she had about a month left to figure out her next step because the arrangement was never meant to be permanent. She got extremely upset and said I was kicking her out when she was vulnerable. She also accused me of caring more about my house than about my own sister. Then came the part that really shocked me. She told me she had already told her friends she was settling down there and that I couldn't just change my mind now. When I reminded her that I never agreed to that, she said something like, "Well, you didn't say no either." Over the next few days, things got awkward. She started giving me the silent treatment and complaining loudly on the phone to people about how her brother was threatening to make her homeless. The final straw happened last week. I came home from the grocery store and saw that she had hung a large corkboard in the hallway with what looked like a renovation plan for the house. She had labeled different rooms with ideas like Jenna's studio, shared library, and future guest suite. She even circled the backyard and wrote garden expansion. I asked her what that was about. She said she was planning improvements for our place. Our place. That phrase instantly made my stomach drop. I told her firmly that this is my house and that she needed to stop acting like she owned it. I reminded her again that she was only staying temporarily. She completely lost it and started yelling that I was selfish and that I had plenty of space but refused to help family. She said if our roles were reversed, she would never treat me like this. Now my parents are involved and they're pressuring me to reconsider because Jenna is struggling and apparently thought she had a stable living situation. My mom says I should give her at least a year to get back on her feet since the house has extra rooms anyway. But from my perspective, the issue isn't just space. It's the fact that she moved in with the assumption she could gradually claim the house as her own without actually asking me. Some relatives are saying I'm being too rigid and that family should support each other during tough times. Others think Jenna massively overstepped and is trying to guilt me into letting her stay indefinitely. Right now, I've told her she still has 3 weeks left like we originally discussed, and she's acting like I betrayed her. So AITA for refusing to let my sister turn my house into her permanent home after she told everyone it basically already was? AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my house after he told the whole family I owed him my success? I, 29M, grew up with my older brother Jake, 33M, in a pretty typical middle-class family. Jake was always the golden child. He was outgoing, good at sports, and my parents loved showing him off. I was more quiet and spent most of my time drawing or messing around on my computer. My parents didn't hate me or anything, but it was very obvious who they were more proud of. When Jake was 18, he decided college wasn't for him. He bounced between jobs for years. Sometimes he'd work construction, sometimes retail, sometimes nothing at all. Meanwhile, I went to college for graphic design and later started working freelance. It was slow at first, but eventually I built a pretty stable career doing branding work for small businesses. The weird part is that Jake started telling people that he was the reason I succeeded. This apparently started because when I was about 15, he convinced our parents to buy a slightly better computer for the house so he could play games. I used that same computer to learn design software. Over the years, Jake turned that into this story where he invested in my future and pushed me to follow my passion. In reality, he just wanted to play games and got bored of the computer after a year. For the most part, one ignored it because it sounded ridiculous. Anyone who actually knew us knew Jake wasn't secretly mentoring me in graphic design when we were teenagers. Fast forward to about 2 years ago. My freelance work took off after a local company I worked with got pretty big and recommended me to a bunch of other clients. I ended up making way more money than I expected and bought a small house. It's not a mansion or anything, but it's nice and I'm proud of it because I worked really hard for it. After that, Jake's story somehow got even bigger. At family gatherings, he started telling people that if he hadn't convinced our parents to buy that computer, I never would have discovered design. He would laugh and say things like, I should be charging him commission. Everyone would kind of chuckle awkwardly. I usually just roll my eyes. Then last Thanksgiving, he told the story again, but this time he added something new. He said that since he basically started my career, I owed him for the help. My aunt jokingly asked how much he was expecting, and Jake said something like, well, if he ever gets rich, he can at least make sure his big brother isn't struggling. Everyone laughed, but it felt weird. A few months ago, Jake lost his job again. Apparently, the company downsized, and he was one of the first to go. At first, I felt bad for him. Losing a job sucks. But then he started making comments about my house. He came over one weekend and kept talking about how much space I had. It's a 3-bedroom place, but one room is my office and the other is basically storage for equipment and supplies. Jake kept joking that one of those rooms could easily become the Jake Suite. About 2 weeks later, he called me and asked if he could move in for a while. He said it would just be until he got back on his feet. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that. My house is also where I work, and I know Jake's habits. When he's unemployed, he tends to stay up all night playing games, sleep during the day, and generally treat the place like a frat house. I didn't want that energy in my home, especially when it's also my workplace. Jake immediately got annoyed and said I was being selfish. Then he dropped the line that really set me off. He said I wouldn't even have this house if it wasn't for him convincing our parents to buy that computer when we were kids. I told him that was ridiculous and that he didn't create my career. I said he wanted the computer for games and that I was the one who spent years learning design and building a business. He said I was being ungrateful and that family is supposed to help each other. After that, he went straight to our parents and told them I refused to help him even though I owe my success to him. My mom called me saying I should at least let him stay temporarily because he's going through a hard time. My dad said Jake always supported my interests growing up, and I shouldn't forget that. That honestly blew my mind because Jake absolutely did not support my interests. If anything, he used to make fun of me for being the computer nerd. Now, a bunch of relatives think I'm being cold for not helping my own brother when I clearly have the space. From their perspective, it's just letting him use a spare room for a while. From my perspective, it's inviting someone into my house who openly claims I owe him my livelihood. Jake has also started telling people that I'm acting like I'm too good for the family now that I make decent money. I do feel a little guilty because I know he's struggling right now, and technically I could let him stay. But at the same time, it feels really wrong to reward someone who constantly rewrites history to make my work look like his accomplishment. So now I'm stuck wondering if I'm being stubborn or if this boundary is reasonable. AITA? AITA for refusing to give my sister the spare house key after she tested my boundaries? I, 29F, bought my first house last year. It's small, but it's mine, and I'm really proud of it. Growing up, my family was the kind where boundaries didn't really exist. People borrowed things without asking, showed up unannounced, and everyone was expected to just go along with it. I moved out as soon as I could because that environment stressed me out constantly. My sister Laura, 32F, is the opposite of me. She's extremely social, very spontaneous, and has always treated other people's space like it's communal. When I first bought the house, my mom immediately suggested I give Laura a spare key in case of emergencies. I hesitated because Laura has a history of dropping by places whenever she feels like it, but my mom kept insisting that family should have access in case something happens. So I compromised. I told Laura that once I finished settling in and installing new locks, I'd consider giving her a spare key, but only if she respected my boundaries and asked before coming over. She laughed and said I was being dramatic, but agreed. Fast forward a few months. Laura started asking to come over more often, usually on short notice. I didn't mind occasionally, but sometimes she'd text things like, "I'm in the neighborhood, so I'm stopping by," instead of asking. A few times I said no because I was busy or just wanted quiet time, and she would respond with things like, "Wow, you're really strict about your little house." About a month ago, something weird happened. I came home from work and noticed my back gate was slightly open. I thought maybe I forgot to close it, but then I realized one of my patio chairs had been moved. Nothing was stolen, but it freaked me out a bit. The next weekend, I mentioned it casually when I was visiting my parents. Laura immediately started grinning. She admitted she had come over that afternoon while I was at work. I was shocked because she doesn't have a key. She said she had climbed the side fence just to see if she could. She claimed she wanted to check if my backyard was really as secure as I think it is. I asked why she would do that instead of just texting me. She said she wanted to see how I'd react if someone tested my boundaries. I honestly didn't even know what to say to that. She said she didn't go inside the house and only stayed a few minutes, but the whole thing felt incredibly invasive to me. I told her that climbing into my yard without permission was not okay, and that it actually proved exactly why I was hesitant about giving her a key. Laura rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting because she was just messing around. Then my mom jumped in and said that if Laura had a key in the first place, she wouldn't have needed to climb the fence. According to my mom, this whole situation shows that Laura should have a spare key for emergencies. That logic made absolutely no sense to me. I said no. I told them that if anything, this confirmed that I definitely should not give Laura unrestricted access to my house. Laura got offended and said I was treating her like a criminal. She also said she only did the test because she wanted to see if I was serious about my weird privacy rules. Now, my parents keep bringing it up during family dinners. My dad says it's normal for siblings to have house keys for each other. My mom says I'm creating unnecessary drama over something harmless. Laura has started making passive-aggressive jokes like, "Guess I better bring my climbing gear if I ever want to visit." I've tried explaining that the issue isn't the backyard itself. It's the fact that she intentionally crossed a boundary just to see what I would do. A few relatives think I'm being too rigid and that giving her a key would actually prevent situations like this. But to me, that sounds like rewarding the exact behavior that made me uncomfortable in the first place. I'm starting to wonder if I'm being overly defensive because of how chaotic our house was growing up. Maybe my reaction seems bigger to them than it really is. But at the same time, the idea of Laura having free access to my house now makes me even more uneasy than before. So AITA for refusing to give my sister a spare key after she climbed in my backyard to test my boundaries? AITA for refusing to give my sister the house her parents left me, even though the whole family says she needs it more? I'm 31M, and my sister Lily is 35F. Growing up, our family was pretty average financially, but our parents were extremely careful with money. They bought a modest house in the late 90s and always talked about it being the family home. Lily moved out early when she was 19 and honestly never really had stable housing after that. She bounced between apartments, boyfriends, and even stayed with friends a lot. Meanwhile, I stayed closer to home, went to a local college, and eventually got a stable job as a civil engineer. About 6 years ago, I moved back in with my parents temporarily when my dad had a health scare. That temporary move kind of turned permanent because both of my parents started having more health issues. I helped with doctor visits, home maintenance, bills, groceries, basically everything. Lily would visit maybe once every couple of months, but she always had some reason she couldn't help more. Sometimes it was work, sometimes her car was broken, sometimes she was going through something. I try not to resent it because she's always been a bit chaotic and my parents seemed happy just seeing her. 2 years ago, my dad passed away and my mom's health declined pretty fast after that. During that time, I was still living there and covering most expenses because my mom's retirement didn't go very far. Lily visited more often during the last few months, but still wasn't really involved in the day-to-day care. When my mom passed last year, the house and most of their savings were left to me in the will. Lily got some sentimental items and a small amount of money. I didn't know about the will beforehand and honestly felt pretty uncomfortable about it when I found out. But my mom had left a letter explaining that she appreciated that I stayed and helped them, and she wanted me to have the stability of the house. I cried reading it because I never thought of helping them as something that needed to be rewarded. When Lily found out about the will, things exploded. She accused me of manipulating our parents while they were sick and said there's no way they would have left everything to me unless I pressured them. I tried showing her the letter, but she refused to read it. She told me that as the older sibling, she should have gotten the house, or at least half of it. At first, she demanded we sell the house and split the money. I explained that legally it was mine and that I had been living there and paying the mortgage and taxes for years. Then the conversation shifted. Lily said she and her boyfriend had recently broken up and she had nowhere stable to live. She said the right thing would be for me to give her the house or sign it over to her since I have a good job and could afford to buy something else. I offered compromises. I said she could stay in a guest room for a while if she needed time to get back on her feet. I even offered to help with a rental deposit somewhere nearby. She refused and said living in the guest room of her own childhood home would be humiliating if it technically belonged to me. Word spread through our extended family after that. Several of my aunts and cousins started messaging me saying Lily has always struggled more than I have and that I should be compassionate. One aunt literally said, "You already proved you can take care of yourself. Lily needs that house more than you do." Another relative suggested I move to a smaller apartment and let Lily raise a family there someday. The thing is, this house isn't some luxury property. It's just a normal 3-bedroom place in an older neighborhood, but it's the one stable thing I've had for years. I put a lot of work into it while my parents were alive, fixing the roof, repainting, replacing appliances, and maintaining the yard. It also holds a lot of memories for me because I spent the last years of my parents' lives there taking care of them. Lily started showing up, unannounced a few weeks ago. The first time she came over, she brought 2 of our cousins and tried to frame it like an intervention about doing the right thing. They basically sat in my living room and told me that keeping the house was selfish when Lily is practically homeless. I stayed calm and repeated that she's welcome to stay temporarily if she follows some basic house rules, but I'm not giving away the house. Lily got really angry and said if our parents were alive, they'd be ashamed of me. That hurt more than I expected. Since then, she's been telling people I stole her inheritance. I've had relatives I barely talk to messaging me about it. Some of them say they understand my side, but still think I should just give her the house to keep the peace. My friends say that's insane and that Lily is trying to guilt me. The situation got even weirder last weekend when Lily showed up again with a suitcase and said she was moving in permanently because it's her house too. I told her no and that she needed to leave if she wouldn't agree to staying temporarily under clear terms. She ended up yelling on the lawn for about 10 minutes before leaving. Now, the family group chat is a mess, and several relatives are saying I'm heartless for locking my own sister out of the house she grew up in. I feel guilty because I know she really is struggling, but I also feel like giving up the house would erase everything my parents wanted and everything I did for them. So AITA for refusing to give my sister the house, even though she clearly needs it more than I do. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to give back a family heirloom ring after my sister suddenly decided it belonged to her. I, 28F, recently got engaged to my fiancé Daniel, 30M. We've been together for 5 years, and about 6 months ago, he proposed with a ring that has become the center of a huge family fight. The ring originally belonged to my grandmother. She passed away 4 years ago, and before she died, she gave me several pieces of her jewelry, including the ring. For context, my grandmother and I were very close. When I was a kid, I spent every weekend at her house helping in her garden, baking, and listening to stories about her life. My sister Laura, 32F, was never very interested in spending time with her. She wasn't rude or anything. She just had other priorities and was always busy with friends or work. About a year before my grandmother passed, she called me into her bedroom one afternoon while I was visiting. She handed me a small jewelry box and told me she wanted me to have a few things while she was still around to see me enjoy them. The ring was one of them. I remember asking if she was sure because I knew Laura might want it, but she laughed and said Laura had never cared about jewelry and that she wanted me to have something meaningful from her. I wore the ring occasionally over the past few years, but mostly kept it safe because it's pretty old and delicate. When Daniel started talking about proposing, I mentioned the ring to him and said it might be nice to use it instead of buying something new. He loved the idea and had it professionally cleaned and slightly resized so it would fit me properly. When he proposed, my whole family was excited at first. My parents cried, my friends were thrilled, and even Laura congratulated us. Everything seemed perfectly normal until a week later when Laura asked if we could talk privately. She told me she had been thinking about the ring and realized it was actually supposed to go to the oldest daughter in the family. I was confused because I had never heard that before. I reminded her that Grandma gave it to me personally while she was alive. Laura said that didn't matter because Grandma was probably just trying to avoid conflict or didn't realize how important the tradition was. I told her there was no tradition and that Grandma specifically said she wanted me to have it. Laura got upset and said I was being selfish and taking advantage of the situation. She said since she's the older sister, the ring should be hers, especially now that she's thinking about getting engaged herself. Things escalated quickly. She asked me to give the ring back so she could save it for a future engagement. I said absolutely not because it was a gift from Grandma to me, and Daniel had already proposed with it. Laura left angry and apparently talked to our parents afterward. The next day, my mom called me and said Laura was really hurt and felt like I was stealing something that should belong to her as the firstborn. My dad didn't say much, but suggested maybe we could share the ring somehow, which makes no sense since it's literally my engagement ring now. I tried explaining that Grandma gave it to me years ago while she was alive, not as part of a will or inheritance. But my mom keeps saying that maybe Grandma didn't think through how it would affect Laura and that giving the ring to my older sister might help keep peace in the family. The problem is that I don't think it's fair to erase Grandma's choice just because Laura suddenly cares about the ring now. For years, she showed zero interest in anything related to Grandma's jewelry. She even joked once that old rings looked dusty. Now that it's attached to an engagement, she wants it back. Daniel is completely on my side and says it's absurd that anyone expects me to give away my engagement ring after the proposal already happened. My friends agree and think my sister is being entitled. But the situation has gotten so tense that family dinners are awkward and Laura barely speaks to me. Last weekend, things blew up again at my parents' house. Laura made a comment in front of everyone saying, "Enjoy it while you can, because family things have a way of coming back to the right person." I told her that Grandma already decided who the right person was. My mom got upset and said we were both being childish. Now, my parents keep hinting that I should be the bigger person because Laura is sensitive and this is clearly important to her. But to me, it feels like giving the ring away would be disrespecting my grandmother's wishes and also kind of ridiculous since it's literally the symbol of my engagement now. I don't want to damage my relationship with my sister or my parents, but I also don't want to hand over something that was given to me directly by someone I loved. So AITA for refusing to give the ring back, even though my sister insists it should have been hers all along? AITA for refusing to give my brother the house I inherited after he ignored our mom for years. I, 31F, recently inherited my mom's house after she passed away last year. It's not a huge house, but it's a nice 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood where my mom lived for over 25 years. Growing up, it was just me and my older brother Jake, 35M, and our mom. Our dad left when we were kids, so she raised us by herself while working 2 jobs. My mom and I were always close. I stayed in her hometown for college and visited her constantly afterward. Jake, on the other hand, moved across the country when he was 22 and basically cut off contact with most of the family. At first he'd call occasionally, but over time it became maybe 1 phone call a year. Sometimes he'd forget birthdays and holidays entirely. For context, my mom never did anything horrible to Jake. They had normal disagreements, but nothing that would justify disappearing like he did. She was always hurt by how distant he became, but never stopped hoping he'd come back around. About 6 years ago, my mom got sick. It started with health problems that slowly got worse. I moved back into the house to help take care of her. I handled doctor visits, medications, groceries, everything. It wasn't easy, but I didn't mind because she had sacrificed so much for us growing up. During those 6 years, Jake visited exactly twice. The first time was for 2 days when she had surgery. The second time was for a long weekend 3 years later. Both times he mostly stayed out with friends instead of spending time with her. Where her condition got worse about a year before she passed, I called him several times and told him things weren't looking good. He said work was too busy to travel and that flights were expensive. Meanwhile, I was working part-time and covering a lot of my mom's expenses. When she passed away last year, Jay came to the funeral and stayed for 3 days. It was honestly the longest I'd seen him in over a decade. A few weeks later, we met with a lawyer to go over her will. My mom left the house entirely to me. Jake received some money she had saved, about $40K. The lawyer explained that my mom had updated the will about 4 years earlier. Jake didn't say anything during the meeting, but afterward he was clearly upset. He said it was unfair that I got the house while he only got money. I reminded him that I had been the one living there and taking care of her for years. He argued that it was still our childhood home and should be split equally. He suggested we sell it and split the profit. The thing is, I didn't want to sell it. I had been living there for years already, and it's the place where I spent most of my life. I also invested a lot of my own money into repairs while caring for my mom. I told Jake that our mom made the decision herself and that I intended to keep the house. For months things were quiet, but about 2 months ago, Jake called me with a completely different idea. He said he and his girlfriend were planning to move back to our hometown and start a family. He asked if I would give him the house since he needed space for kids and I could just get an apartment. I honestly thought he was joking. When I said no, he told me I was being selfish and that our mom would have wanted the house to stay available for both of us. I reminded him that she literally wrote a will saying otherwise. He then said that the only reason she left it to me was because I had been living with her and influencing her decisions. That comment really upset me because my mom was perfectly capable of making her own choices. After that conversation, he started messaging me constantly. He said that since I got the house, the fair thing would be to either sell it and split the money or transfer ownership to him because he needed it more. I told him I wasn't doing either of those things. Now, several relatives on his side of the family are contacting me saying I'm being greedy and ruining my relationship with my brother over property. But from my perspective, Jake walked away from the family for years and barely showed up when our mom needed him. I was the one who took care of her every day. Still, part of me wonders if maybe I'm being stubborn because emotions are involved. So AITA for refusing to give my brother the house I inherited, even though he says he needs it more now. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her emotional support goat to my wedding and telling her she's no longer invited if she insists. I'm a 29F, and I got engaged last year to my fiancé Mark, 31M. We've been planning our wedding for months, and it's honestly been one of the most stressful but exciting times of my life. We're not doing anything super extravagant, but we've put a lot of effort into making the day feel special for our friends and family. The venue is a historic art hall about an hour outside the city, and they have pretty strict rules about animals because of the landscaping and the fact that they host a lot of formal events. This becomes important because my sister Lily, 26F, owns a goat. Yes, a goat. About 2 years ago, Lily moved out to a small rural property with her boyfriend and started getting into what she calls holistic living. At first, it was normal stuff like gardening and chickens, which was honestly kind of cool. Then she got 2 goats. One of them, Daisy, became her absolute obsession. Lily claims Daisy is her emotional support animal. She says the goat helps with her anxiety and that being around Daisy calms her down. I'm not a mental health professional, so I never question her about it. But to be clear, Daisy is not a trained service animal. She's literally just a goat that Lily loves a lot. About 3 months ago, during a family dinner, Lily casually asked what the animal policy was for my wedding venue. I told her they don't allow animals unless they're trained service dogs. She immediately said, well, Daisy is basically my emotional support animal, so that should be fine. I told her I didn't think the venue would see it that way, but I could double check. The next day, I emailed the venue coordinator, and she responded pretty quickly with a very polite but firm no. She said farm animals are absolutely not allowed on the property for liability reasons. When I told Lily this, she got really upset. She said I was excluding something that was important to her mental health. I tried to explain that it wasn't my rule, it was the venue's rule, and that I wasn't going to risk losing our deposit or getting kicked out. I thought that was the end of it. Then last week, Lily called me and said she had figured out a solution. Her plan was to bring Daisy anyway, but keep her in a decorated wagon during the ceremony and reception. She even said she'd put flowers around the wagon so the goat would match the aesthetic. I honestly thought she was joking at first. When I realized she wasn't, I told her absolutely not. I explained again that the venue explicitly said no farm animals and that sneaking a goat onto the property was a terrible idea. She got really defensive and said I was being controlling and dismissive of her anxiety. I told her that if Daisy was truly necessary for her to function at the wedding, then maybe she should consider not coming because I can't break the venue rules. That's when things escalated. Lily started crying and saying I care more about a stupid venue policy than about her well-being. She said I'm ashamed of her lifestyle and that this is just another example of me trying to make her feel weird for living differently. For the record, I don't care that she lives on a farm. I just don't want to go wandering around my wedding. The situation got worse when she told our parents. My mom called me and said maybe I should just let Lily bring the goat because it would be memorable. My dad thinks the whole thing is ridiculous, but says I should apologize for hurting Lily's feelings. Then yesterday, Lily texted me a picture of Daisy wearing a little flower crown with the caption, "She's ready for the big day." I finally snapped and told her that if she shows up with the goat, security will not let her in, and that if she keeps pushing this, she might as well not come at all. I said the wedding is not a petting zoo, and I'm done arguing about it. Now my phone has been blowing up with messages from some relatives saying I'm being insensitive and dramatic. A few cousins think I should just embrace it because it would make a funny story later. Mark is completely on my side, but he also thinks the entire situation is so bizarre that he can't believe it's real. Part of me feels bad because Lily clearly feels very strongly about Daisy, but another part of me thinks bringing a goat to someone else's wedding is objectively insane. So now my sister is barely speaking to me. My mom thinks I'm being stubborn, and half my extended family is weirdly invested in the idea of a flower-crowned goat attending my ceremony. AITA for putting my foot down and refusing to let my sister bring her emotional support goat to my wedding. AITA for refusing to give my sister my late husband's ring after she announced her engagement. My husband Daniel passed away 3 years ago after a sudden illness. We had been married for 9 years, and while that might not sound like a lifetime to some people, it was everything to me. He was the kind of person who remembered tiny details about people, like their favorite candy or the story they told once about their childhood dog. Losing him felt like the ground beneath my life disappeared overnight. One of the few things I kept very close to me after he passed was my wedding ring and his ring. Mine stays in a small wooden box on my nightstand because wearing it started to make me emotional at work. His ring is on a simple chain in that same box. It's one of those things that connects me to him in a quiet way. I don't show it to people much, but it matters to me. My younger sister Chloe has always been a little more impulsive than me. She falls in love fast, jumps into big decisions, and then usually figures things out along the way. Sometimes it works out for her, sometimes it doesn't. About 6 months ago, she started dating a guy named Ryan. They seemed happy, but I honestly didn't know him very well because they moved quickly and spent most of their time together. 2 weeks ago, she called a family dinner at our parents' house to announce that Ryan proposed. Everyone was surprised because they'd only been together about half a year, but our parents were excited and trying to be supportive. Chloe was practically glowing and talking nonstop about venues, colors, and how she wanted everything to feel romantic and meaningful. About halfway through dinner, she suddenly turned to me and asked if we could talk privately for a minute. I assumed she wanted advice about planning or something like that. So we stepped into the hallway. She started by telling me how much she always admired my relationship with Daniel. She said we had the kind of love she hopes to have with Ryan. That part was sweet, and I told her I hoped the same for her. Then she asked if I would give her my wedding ring from Daniel, so she could use the diamond for her engagement ring. I thought she was joking at first. When I realized she was serious, I kind of froze. I told her that ring meant a lot to me and that I wasn't comfortable giving it away. I tried to say it gently, but she immediately looked disappointed. She said I wasn't using it anyway, and that it would be beautiful if the stone continued a love story in the family. She also said it would save Ryan a lot of money because he's still paying off student loans. I told her I understood the financial side, but that ring was part of my life with Daniel, and I wasn't ready to separate the diamond or give it away. I said maybe one day I might pass it down to a child or keep it as a family heirloom, but right now it felt too personal. Chloe got quiet for a moment and then said she thought I would want something positive to come from Daniel's memory instead of just keeping the ring in a box. That comment really hurt because it made it sound like I was hoarding grief or something. When we went back to the table, she looked upset, and later she told our parents what happened. Now the situation has blown up way more than I expected. My mom says she understands why the ring is sentimental, but also thinks it would be a beautiful gesture to let Chloe use it. My dad mostly stayed neutral, but mentioned that Daniel would probably want love and happiness for the family. Chloe has been texting me, saying I'm being selfish, and that I'm letting an object sit and used while she's trying to build a future. She also pointed out that I don't have kids and might never have anyone to pass it to anyway, which felt like a really low blow. A couple of my relatives have even messaged me saying it would be symbolic and meaningful for the diamond to become part of new marriage instead of staying locked away. But to me, it's not just a diamond. It's the ring Daniel chose, the ring he put on my finger the day we promised our lives to each other. Even if I'm not wearing it every day, it still feels like a piece of that moment. I'm happy for my sister, and I want her to have a wonderful wedding and marriage. I even offered to help pay for part of her ring if money is tight, but she said that defeats the whole symbolic continuation idea. Now she's barely speaking to me, and my mom keeps hinting that family should make sacrifices for each other. I'm starting to feel guilty because I know she really wants that ring, but the thought of taking the diamond out or handing it over makes my chest feel tight. At the same time, part of me wonders if I'm holding on to something in a way that's preventing others from being happy. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister my late husband's ring for her engagement? AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move into our house after she lost her job? I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Emily, 32F, for 8 years. We live in a 3-bedroom house in a suburban area with our 2 kids, Mia, 7, and Lucas, 5. Life has been pretty stable for us. Emily and I both have steady jobs, and we've been trying to save for a bigger house since our family is growing. Everything was going fine until my sister-in-law, Karen, 30F, lost her job at a local marketing firm a few months ago. Karen has always been a little dependent on others. She hasn't had a full-time, stable job for more than a couple of years at a stretch. She's sweet, but she has a habit of asking for favors and expecting people to bend over backward for her. When she told Emily that she was out of work and struggling to pay rent, Emily immediately suggested that she could stay with us temporarily. At first, I was hesitant, but Emily insisted, saying it would be just for a few weeks. When Karen moved in, things seemed manageable. She took one of the bedrooms we had set aside as a guest room, which is right next to our kids' room. She was supposed to stay for a month, or two while she got back on her feet. At first, she looked for jobs and tried to help out around the house. She cooked a few dinners and helped occasionally with cleaning. But after 2 weeks, things started to go downhill. Karen stopped looking for jobs seriously. She would spend hours scrolling on her phone, sometimes watching TV in the kids' room while they were supposed to be napping, which made it impossible for them to rest. She began borrowing small amounts of money from us, saying she'd pay it back once she got a job. At first, it was just $20 or $30, which I didn't mind, but it soon turned into $100, then $200. Every time I reminded her to pay us back, she would get defensive or make excuses. The house started to feel cramped. Our kids are young and need their space and routine, which was constantly being disrupted. Karen would sometimes let herself into the kids' room while they were playing, rearranging their toys, or moving their things around. I asked her politely to give them privacy, but she said, "Oh, I'm just helping them be organized." She also started inviting friends over without telling us, turning our living room into a hangout spot. Emily began defending Karen, saying that she needed support and that I was being too harsh. I tried to explain that I wasn't opposed to helping her, but living in our house permanently or semi-permanently wasn't the solution. I suggested she look for a more affordable apartment or stay with a friend while she got a job. Emily and Karen both got upset, and our discussions turned into arguments. The breaking point came last week. I was working from home, and Karen decided to have a study group of 6 people in our living room. They were loud, drinking soda, and playing music. Our kids were napping, so I asked her to keep it down. She refused, saying, "It's my friends, and I'm allowed to have them over." I was furious and told her she couldn't have people over without permission. Karen and Emily both yelled at me, and I walked out to cool down. After that incident, I told Emily that Karen needed to leave. I explained that our house wasn't a hotel or a permanent solution, and her behavior was disruptive. Emily was upset and accused me of being unsympathetic. She said Karen had nowhere else to go and that we should help her. I offered to help her look for an apartment, help her with moving costs, and even help her set up a budget, but I refused to let her stay here. Emily accused me of kicking her out in her time of need, which isn't exactly fair in my opinion. Karen, on the other hand, became passive-aggressive. She started leaving dirty dishes in the sink for days, using our laundry without asking, and forgetting to lock the doors after leaving. I finally sat down with both of them and said she had to move out within 2 weeks. Emily got very emotional and said I was being cruel, but I held my ground. Karen has now begun making comments on social media about how her selfish brother-in-law kicked her out and how Emily doesn't stand up for family. My parents and siblings are divided on the issue. My parents say I'm being unreasonable because family should help each other, but my brother-in-law thinks I'm right because Karen hasn't been responsible or respectful. Some friends say that I'm being too strict and that I should show more compassion. I feel stuck. I don't want to damage my relationship with Emily, but I also can't let our house become a permanent living space for someone who isn't taking responsibility for their life. I've tried to compromise and help her in other ways, but Emily seems to think that letting her stay is the only kind option. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law continue living with us, even though she's struggling financially? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house after he repeatedly disrespected me? I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. We grew up in a small town and stayed in touch even after moving to different cities. I live in a modest apartment in a big city now, and while it isn't luxurious, it's cozy, and I've made a lot of effort to make it my own space. About 2 years ago, Emily started dating Mark, 30M, and initially, I liked him. He seemed funny, smart, and attentive. Over time, though, I began to notice small things that bothered me, things I try to brush off because Emily seemed happy. Fast forward to last month, Emily called me and asked if Mark could stay with me for a few days because he was between apartments after his lease ended. She said it would only be 3 nights, and I reluctantly agreed. I have always tried to help her when she needed it, so I thought 3 nights wouldn't be the end of the world. I didn't anticipate what would happen. Mark arrived, and at first, everything seemed fine. But by the second day, I began noticing patterns I'd seen before but didn't fully acknowledge. He would eat food I hadn't offered him, leave dirty dishes in the sink, and leave his laundry on my couch instead of using the bathroom or bedroom. I asked him politely to clean up after himself, and he brushed it off with jokes, which I found irritating but tried to let slide. The real problem came the third night. I had a full day of work, including an early morning meeting, and had stayed up late finishing a project. I was exhausted, and when I came home, Mark was on my couch with my laptop, scrolling through files. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was just checking something for fun. I felt immediately violated and told him firmly that my laptop and personal files are off limits. He laughed and said I was overreacting. I went to my room to cool off and told Emily what had happened. She said I was being dramatic and that Mark didn't mean anything by it. I told her that it wasn't just one incident and that I felt disrespected in my own home. Emily became defensive and said, "You're making it sound like he's some kind of monster. He's just a guy, and you're overreacting." The next morning, I told Mark that I wanted him to leave. He seemed surprised and annoyed, claiming he had nowhere else to go and that Emily had assured him it would be fine. I said that it was my home and my rules, and I could not allow someone who disrespected my boundaries to stay under my roof. He started arguing loudly, saying I was being unreasonable and selfish. He even tried to guilt-trip me by saying that Emily would be upset and that I was hurting her relationship. Emily called shortly afterward and was furious. She accused me of being cruel and said that I was trying to sabotage her relationship. She even suggested that I was jealous of her and trying to punish her. I tried explaining calmly that my problem wasn't with her, but with Mark's behavior and the fact that he crossed boundaries multiple times. Emily wouldn't hear it and told me that if I cared about her, I would let him stay. I did not. I told her that my home is my sanctuary and that I cannot compromise on respect and personal boundaries. She hung up on me, and Mark left that evening after reluctantly finding a hotel. Since then, Emily has been cold toward me. She barely responds to texts and has started posting on social media about how some people can't even show basic kindness to family. It's clearly aimed at me, although she hasn't tagged me. Our parents have called to ask what happened. I explained the situation to them, and while they agree that Mark's behavior was inappropriate, they also said I might have been too harsh because he didn't mean anything malicious. I understand their point, but I feel that repeated violations of my personal space and belongings cannot be excused as harmless. I've been losing sleep over this. I miss my sister, and I worry that this is damaging our relationship. On the other hand, I feel strongly that allowing someone to stay in my home who disrespects me would have been wrong, and I'm not willing to compromise my boundaries for anyone, even family. I've talked to a few friends about it. Some say I was right. Others say I overreacted and should have found a middle ground, maybe letting him stay for one night or asking him to rent a cheap Airbnb nearby. I don't want to seem unreasonable, but at the same time, I feel like my feelings and space are valid. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my apartment after he repeatedly disrespected me? Or should I just tolerate it for the sake of family peace? I'm genuinely torn because I want my sister in my life, but I also want to maintain my boundaries and feel safe in my own home. The situation has made me question how much I should compromise in relationships with family when their partners cross lines, and I'm struggling with guilt over potentially damaging my relationship with Emily. I'm hoping for some perspective here because I feel like I might be too strict, but I also don't want to feel like I was wrong for protecting my home and my personal space. Has anyone else faced a situation where a family member's partner overstepped like this? And how did you handle it without causing lasting damage to your relationship with your family? Any advice would be appreciated. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after years of tension and unmet promises. I, 33F, have a younger sister, Megan, 30F, and we have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. Growing up, she was always very manipulative, and I was the one who my parents relied on to keep the peace in the household. This dynamic followed us into adulthood. I love my sister, but our interactions are often tense, and I've had to establish very strict boundaries with her to avoid feeling drained or taken advantage of. About 6 months ago, Megan got engaged to her fiancé, Alex, 32M, and immediately began dropping hints that she wanted to have her wedding at my house. At first, I thought she was joking, but the comments kept coming, escalating from casual suggestions to statements like, your backyard would be perfect for the reception, and it would mean so much to me if you hosted it. I told her outright that my house was not an option and that I wasn't comfortable with her using it for such a major event. Megan laughed it off and said she was just testing the waters, but it became increasingly clear that she wasn't going to let it go easily. Things escalated when Megan started telling our parents that I was refusing to support her. I explained my reasons to them. My backyard is small, hosting a wedding requires extensive planning, and I have my own work and life commitments. I also mentioned that our family has a history of me taking on too much, and I've learned to say no to things that cause me stress. My parents sided with me, saying it was unfair for Megan to expect such a huge favor from me. This only made Megan angrier. Over the next few months, Megan began pressuring me in different ways. She asked me to at least let her have the ceremony in my house, saying she could pay for everything. I reminded her that hosting a wedding isn't just about money. It's about time, effort, and emotional labor. I explained that even if she covered costs, I would be responsible for everything from setup to cleanup, dealing with vendors, and managing guests, which I did not want to do. Around this time, she started showing me her Pinterest boards and making me comment on venue decorations, flowers, and seating arrangements. She began dropping comments about how family support matters more than money, and implying that my refusal was selfish. I tried to maintain my boundaries, reiterating that my house was not an option and that I would attend her wedding happily, but on her chosen venue. The breaking point came last week. Megan called me in tears, claiming that she had asked me to do this one thing for her, and I was choosing to be difficult. She said that everyone in the family was disappointed in me, that my parents were upset I wasn't helping, and that Alex had even mentioned how hurt he was that I wasn't participating in the planning. I explained calmly that hosting a wedding is an enormous undertaking, that it was unreasonable to ask me to do it, and that my decision didn't reflect my feelings toward her. I also reminded her that I was happy to support her in other ways, like helping with dress selection or guest list suggestions. Megan lost her temper and accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said she expected her big sister to step up and help make her wedding perfect and that I was ruining her dreams. She ended the conversation by saying that she might have to uninvite me if I wouldn't host or contribute in the way she wanted. This left me feeling frustrated and emotionally drained. Since then, I've received several texts from family members pressuring me to reconsider, with messages like, "She's your sister. Don't make her day harder," and "It's just one weekend. Can't you sacrifice a little?" I've tried explaining that my boundaries are not a lack of love or support, but the responses are dismissive. Some relatives even hinted that my refusal could damage my relationship with Megan long-term. I've started second-guessing myself because the backlash is intense. I love my sister, and I want her wedding to be beautiful and joyous, but I feel that agreeing to host it would be a huge mistake. It would create stress, resentment, and could permanently damage our relationship because I would be forced into a role I don't want. I'm also worried that if I give in now, it will set a precedent that Megan can continue to manipulate me in the future. On the other hand, I know that my refusal might deeply hurt Megan and cause tension in the family. I've considered offering smaller forms of help, like assisting with the invitations or giving advice on vendors, but she has made it clear that these options are not enough for her. I don't want to ruin her wedding, but I also don't want to compromise my mental health and boundaries just to appease her. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding despite years of tension and her insistence that I do so. I feel like I'm protecting myself and being honest, but the negative reactions from her and our family have made me doubt whether I'm truly in the wrong. Has anyone else dealt with a situation where a family member demanded an unreasonable favor for a major life event? I want to support my sister without sacrificing my own well-being, but I'm not sure if my boundaries are fair or if I'm being selfish. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a long-kept family secret? I 28F, have always been close to my family, especially my older sister, Hannah, 32F. Growing up, we were inseparable. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and Hannah took on a lot of the responsibility of helping raise me. So naturally, I idolized her. We shared clothes, secrets, and late-night chats about everything. I thought we were on the same wavelength about most things. Until recently, that is. Hannah got engaged about 6 months ago, and I was thrilled. She's marrying Michael, 33M, someone I've known casually for years. He's always seemed nice, albeit a little reserved, but I assumed he made her happy, which was enough for me. When she announced the engagement, I was ecstatic and immediately started planning my role in the wedding. I even offered to host a small bridal shower in my apartment, which she gladly accepted. Everything seemed perfect. A few weeks ago, Hannah asked me to help go through some old family boxes in the attic. She mentioned wanting to find photos for the wedding slideshow. I happily agreed. While sifting through boxes of old photos and letters, I found a folder labeled Private, Do Not Open. My curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked inside. What I found changed everything. The folder contained documents that revealed that Michael had been involved in a very messy legal dispute with our family when we were kids. I won't go into all the nitty-gritty legal details, but the gist is that he was accused of embezzling a family member's inheritance and was a significant source of financial and emotional distress for our family during a critical period. I couldn't believe it at first. The whole time I thought he was just some quiet guy from college. I confronted my mom about it, and she confirmed it all. She said that Michael had somehow made amends privately with Hannah and the rest of the family, and since it was so long ago, they wanted to move on. My mom also emphasized that Hannah knew about this and had chosen to forgive him, and that I should respect her decision. She warned me not to bring it up to Hannah or anyone else because it could stir up drama. I felt conflicted, but decided to sit on it for a while and process everything. Fast forward a few weeks. Hannah's wedding is just around the corner. Invitations have gone out, and I've been heavily involved in the planning, even helping pick flowers and coordinating with the caterer. I finally decided I needed to talk to Hannah about what I found. I approached her privately, trying to stay calm and respectful. I told her that I had discovered Michael's past and expressed my discomfort with attending the wedding without some acknowledgement or conversation about it. Hannah was blindsided. She said she couldn't believe I went through the boxes without permission and accused me of violating her privacy. She also said that I was unfairly judging Michael for something that happened years before she even knew him. She reminded me that everyone makes mistakes and that what mattered was the present and the love she has for him. I tried to explain that it wasn't just a mistake. It had caused real damage to the family, but she refused to listen. She said if I couldn't support her on her wedding day, she didn't want me there at all. I was torn. I love my sister and would never want to hurt her, but I also couldn't just ignore the past. I tried to compromise by saying I could attend, but would prefer to have some boundaries, maybe not interact with Michael much, but she refused. She insisted that if I went, I would have to treat Michael as part of the family and act like nothing ever happened. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't just pretend. It felt like erasing a very significant part of our family history. So, I made the decision not to attend the wedding. I wrote her a heartfelt letter explaining my reasons without attacking Michael or try to guilt her. I emphasized that I loved her and wanted to maintain our relationship, but I could not in good conscience celebrate with someone who had caused so much pain to the people I love. I offered to spend time with her before or after the wedding in a private setting, but I couldn't be part of the ceremony. After she received the letter, things exploded. Hannah called me selfish, dramatic, and unforgiving. Our parents are divided. My dad supports my choice, saying I have a right to my feelings and boundaries, while my mom thinks I overreacted and that I am jeopardizing our family relationships over something in the past. Hannah hasn't spoken to me in a week, and my social media has been filled with subtle digs from mutual friends and extended family who think I'm being unreasonable. I feel awful for causing tension and missing my sister's big day, but at the same time, I feel like attending would compromise my values and my mental peace. I've tried to reach out gently, offering to meet in a neutral space to celebrate with her later, but she's still angry and distant. I can't tell if I'm being overly rigid and dramatic, or if I have a legitimate reason to stand my ground. I just can't reconcile pretending like nothing happened. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering Michael's past with my family. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.